I wore my major's uniform at my grandfather's funeral. My step scoffed at my chest badges. "Take off that costume," she said. "You're just the help." She laughed at my 11 years of service. Family's shameful secret was me. What she didn't know was that this secret would be her public reckoning. My name is Major Evelyn Drake. My age is 29. On this frigid November morning, Virginia rain pelts the cobblestone streets of Old Town Alexandria felt like a lame apology for the Corina House atmosphere. True, it was cold outside. The frost inside was well made. I stood alone in the large foyer in my army uniform. The deep blue jacket felt like a second skin, and its finely pressed creases showed my discipline, my lifeblood. Ribbon and medal rose on my chest. Each represents a promise kept, a challenge. A chunk of my life given throughout 11 years of service seemed heavier than usual. They represented honor in my world. The house my grandfather built had them as emblems of defiance. Vivian Crowhurst, my stepmother, didn't consider me an officer. I wasn't the homebound, heartbroken granddaughter. I was an interruption to her ideal world of silent affluence and whispered authority. A ghost in black silk, she passed me, cloaked in an overwhelming cloud of Chanel No. 5. She leaned nearer, my cousin Celeste. Her low, poisonous hiss was for me only. Celeste, ever the loyal echo, let out a delicate giggle. It was a sound like shattered glass, sharp and cruel, and it found a place deep inside my chest to twist. I kept my gaze fixed on the rain-streaked window, my posture rigid, my hands held loosely at my sides, as regulations required. I was trained to stay calm in the face of enemy fire. I never imagined the most hostile territory I'd ever stand on would be my family's Persian rug. My grandfather's voice echoed in my memory, a lesson from years ago. Discipline isn't just for battlefield, Evelyn. It's holding your ground when the enemy is right in front of you. Seemed somber as he approached me, his eyes immediately drawn to the silver oak leaf on my shoulder marks. He shook my hand respectfully and said, "Major Drake," his voice rumbled. "My heart felt sympathies on your loss. This general was so proud of you," he told me. I felt a transient warmth in my heart, a flash of recognition and belonging. Suddenly it was extinguished. Sanaa linked her arm across the senator's to bodily remove him from me, like a hawk. Her smile was blinding, and her voice oozed poisonous honey. "Oh, Senator, how wonderful to see you. Please let me introduce you to the family," she purred in a circle. I was outside when she gestured vaguely in my way without looking. Ignore her. Just a distant relative helping us with a few things. She let the word help dangle in the air like a well-aimed rocket. She took everything from me in one sentence. My position, service, and identify as the general's granddaughter. I stopped being Major Evelyn Drake. I was an anonymous employee and assistant. The air in my throat thickened, but my grandfather's words and instruction kept me. My spine was solid and my countenance neutral. I wouldn't let her see I break. I felt the insult taint me, but I refused to be bowed. 1 hour later, the battle moved to the library. The smell of old leather and wood polish, once comforting, now resembled arena air before a fight. This room was my grandfather's refuge. Today was their stage. Vivian Celeste and her husband, ambitious DC lawyer Preston Vale, relaxed in the soft leather sofas like winners. Predators awaited the feast. Chose to stand. Longtime family attorney Alistair Finch cleared his throat. He was silent and dignified, holding my gaze for a time before reading General Alden Drake's final will and testament. He read the smaller bequests and legal language as the room tensed up, then reached the most essential piece. He spoke clearly and steadily. "I left my entire estate to Major Evelyn Drake, my sole granddaughter. Estate. My 41% controlling interest in Athalgard Industries, the Drake home and its belongings, and the entire 11 million Drake Trust Fund are included." The chamber was drained dry by the quiet. Vivian's shout broke it. "Absurd," she said, leaping to her feet and revealing her terrible fury. Senile old man. His mind was gone. Chaos ensued. Preston stood. Celeste looked, gaping, while he was pale with astonishment. Despite the chaos, Mr. Finch calmly handed me a hefty sealed packet with my grandfather's crest. Lyra Vance, the lawyer's assistant, stopped me near the entrance as I left the war zone. She quickly placed a little metal thing in my palm. USB drive. The general's last order, she muttered, eyes wide, with a meaning I didn't understand. Then she was gone. I closed my hand around the cool metal, the weight of it, and the envelope, feeling heavier than any medal I'd ever earned. The war seemed to have only just begun. I didn't go back to Fort Liberty. My duty there could wait. My duty to the truth couldn't. I sat on the edge of the stiff polyester-covered bed, my laptop humming on the small desk, and Mr. Finch's envelope lay unopened beside it. First the intel. I took a deep breath and slid the USB drive Laravance gave me into the port, crack at the seams. At West Point, a philosophy professor lectured us on Stoicism. You do not control what happens to you, he said, pacing before the class of cadetses, but you have absolute control over how you respond. For years I had lived by that creed. I had controlled my response to enemy ambushes in Afghanistan and the subtle constant hostility of my family. I navigated the drive's contents with cold, methodical precision. It was organized into folders, each a chapter, in a story of betrayal. Files, emails, audio recordings. They appeared on the screen like shards of a shattered mirror, each reflecting a distorted, ugly piece of a truth I never knew existed. Chilling new meaning. Start with trust, then dig deeper. My trust was a crater. I clicked on the first folder labeled Estate Planning. The email chains between Sanaa and Preston made my throat tingle. This wasn't just about contesting the will. It was a calculated long-term campaign to erase me. Don't worry, Auntie, Preston wrote in an email. If the tiny army girl shows her face, I have 100 ways to make her give up. Discipline is her thing. We'll have to demonstrate real-world discipline. The phrase little soldier girl hit me hard. So condescending and demeaning. They saw me that way. Not as a decorated officer or family, but as a child playing dress-up. Manageable inconvenience. More chilling was Vivian's response. Never seeing her would be better. Her existence is offensive. On the desk edge, my hands tightened. They planned my elimination from the family legacy for years, treating me like I was something to be brushed aside before I reached the house. Then I opened an audio file. Lyra Vance's shaky yet clear voice was recorded. She recalled Preston firing her. She described her evidence discovery of him funneling Ethelgard Industries funds through a fake charity. When she confronted him, he threatened her career, reputation, and everything. The recording showed their savagery in stark, excruciating detail. They were rude and greedy. Like swatting a fly, they ruined lives. Dawnfall, a folder encrypted with one horrible name, held the final blow. My training made my fingers fly across the keyboard, breaking the basic password, my grandfather's birthday. Opening the folder took seconds. One picture file was included. My breath jerked. An old fuzzy photo appeared on the screen. A blonde-haired 4-year-old girl smiled on a green grass. The background barracks was Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 1996. Little girl was me. A young parachutist sat beside me, protecting my little shoulders. He wore 82nd Airborne. His sleeve had the patch I wore on mine. His smile was warm, and his eyes crinkled with delight that seemed to spring off the screen. I had never seen this face. It wasn't my grandfather and Drake. I scanned the photo's bottom. A typed caption, Major Colonel Elias Jack's Creed, and 2 words that broke my existence, the truth. Room air grew heavy and unbreathable. Lungs seized. My whole life I was told, a basic tragedy. My Air Force pilot father perished in a routine training accident before I could remember him. Untimely hero. Clean noble story. It was a total falsehood. This man, uniform, and tail were distinct. More than an inheritance was at stake. Not about a mansion, stocks, or money. They stole more. They took my father. They stole my history. My identity, my story. Life decayed. I regarded the screen's smiling figure, unexpectedly plagued by a ghost. The questions flooded my head. Why? This dude was who? He was concealed from me. Why? It hurt like a knife to my soul. I wonder if you've had that moment. A moment when you learn a lifelong truth is false. The feeling of pure freefall, right? A wave of anguish and wrath suffocated. But a single chilly point of clarity formed beneath them. My mission altered. One question shone brightest. A singular concentration amid my prior wreckage. Colonel Elias Creed. Who are you? The next morning, I swapped my army uniform for a smart navy blue pants suit. Crisp fabric, sharp line. My new battlefield required appropriate attire. Ithalgard Industries glass tower headquarters shone in Tyson's VA, a symbol of the power and authority I was challenging. It was meant to intimidate. I refused. A beefy security guard, evidently following orders, intercepted me as I entered the marble foyer through the revolving doors. He posed dismissively. "Ma'am, the visitor waiting area is over there," he remarked, pointing a fat thumb toward a row of cheap plastic chairs near the door where a few delivery couriers were waiting, scrolled their phones. For power, the humiliation was meant to put me down before I started. Despite a flash of fire and rage, I forced it down. My granddad told me proverbs. Pride and a heated spirit lead to ruin. Preston's pride would sink far. My voice was as icy and flat as the marble floor when I faced the guard. "I'm not a visitor," I halted. "I'm owner." He smirked. "Ma'am, please have a seat." I didn't argue. I kept quiet. In the lobby center, I stood firm. My silent, immovable defiance. The luxurious area became a tense theater after the peaceful stalemate. Heads turned. Air crackled. The guard shifted uncomfortably. A scene and a winnable argument were predicted. Not prepared for controlled stillness. Finally, elevator doors rang and Lyra Vance appeared. A file folder in hand, a grim determination on her face. Guard's grin evaporated. Stepped aside. The top-floor boardroom was Preston Thorne's fortress. It was designed to exude total power with its panoramic perspective of the Washington, D.C. skyline. He stood at the head of the long polished mahogany table, radiating smug satisfaction, flanked by a few nervous-looking executives, his face filled with wrath when Lyra and I entered. "Why are you here?" His shout filled the large room. "Get her out, security." I stepped carefully to the head of the table, ignoring him. I gently but firmly thumped Mr. Finch's leather-bound law portfolio. As I had been trained on the parade field, I spoke clearly and steadily to every corner of the room. Per Ithalgard Industries corporate bylaws, any shareholder with over 40% of the company's stock can preside over any meeting. Locking gaze with him, I absorbed his words. He looked confused, then horrified. He considered being outvoted on the board. He didn't realize his loss. "Surveil, this 41% doesn't only get me a seat at your table." My voice dropped to a low, passionate level as I leaned forward. "I'm entitled to let this meeting." Suffocating silence filled the room. A frozen executive looked. Preston's smug confidence vanished like cheap glass, leaving him pale and slack-jawed. His eyes showed genuine terror for the first time. It was a little but wonderful victory. The bliss was brief. A flash of white under my windshield wiper caught my attention when I returned to my ancient Ford in a dim concrete public parking garage later that evening. My heart plummeted. Not a parking ticket. Copy of my grandfather's personal letter to me. I read the one in Mr. Finch's envelope for the first time an hour ago. This copy was tampered with. The flames burned the corners and curled the edges. The heat practically erased my grandfather's handwriting. "But I could make out your courage and I love you." No note or message. Needed none. The message was plain. "You've overstepped. Your inheritance is as easily burned as you are." A crisp, clear ice wrath shook me. This was no longer a corporate fight. Not a fight. It was dangerous. It wasn't simply about winning. Destruction was their goal. Rules of engagement had changed. I stopped defending and attacking. It was hunting time. The burned letter burned my spirit. Disorganized fire and betrayal dreams kept them awake that night. The next afternoon, I sat in a red vinyl booth at a traditional American restaurant in Alexandria's Del Rey area. Coffee and frying bacon filled the air. Dry burger remnants were pushed around my plate. Pressure from isolation made breathing difficult. After winning a battle, the prospect of the wider war left me feeling completely alone. Then the bell above door jingled. Lyra Vance entered, searching the room before focusing on me. She silently entered the booth opposite me with a knowing smile. "I figured I'd find you here," she whispered. "A place like this, it's real, not like their world." She signaled the waitress to bring me a large ceramic mug of boiling black coffee. "I left the law company this morning. I can't work for them," symbolized such evil. Surprised, I looked up. She risked her career and stability for a fight she didn't deserve. I felt read by her. I was trusted by the general. He gave me a chance none else would. Now she looked at me with clear, unflinching eyes. Now I trust you, Major. First time in days someone called me by my title without snark or disrespect. Simple word but life-saving. A hint of warmth spread across my chest. Light flickers in the oppressive blackness. In that cheap diner booth, I understood I was no longer waging this war alone. Thank you, Lyra, I said. It was all I could manage. She nodded, sipping coffee. To fill in the audio file, she described her firing day. I showed Sanaa Preston's embezzlement evidence, she added, her voice still trembling from memory, shock. She just smirked as if it was all a game. But Celeste broke me. Lyra paused, her eyes looking past me, replaying the scene. She was there when Preston was shouting at me, threatening to ruin me. She stood there like I was a bug on her shoe. Then she turned to Preston with a bored sigh and said, "Darling, don't make a scene. Mother wouldn't enjoy the noise." The words hit me hard. Lyra's story confirmed a truth I had always felt, but never fully articulated. Sanaa's cruelty was loud and overt, a raging fire. Celeste's was a quiet, cold poison, perhaps even more terrifying in its absolute lack of empathy. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Major Drake. The voice on the other end was growly, aged, but with a strong undercurrent. I recognized it instantly. It was the old paratrooper from the funeral, the one who had pressed a slip of paper into my hand. My heart leaped into my throat. Meet us at the Airborne and Special Operations Museum. We've got your 6. He hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, the silence of the room, no longer feeling empty, but filled with a new powerful presence, echoed in my mind. I will never fail my comrades. Family isn't just about blood. It's about loyalty. It's about who stands with you in the fire. My blood relatives had left me to burn, but in one day I found my true squadron. I had an army. I had a real family. Celeste's text message arrived 2 days after my meeting with the old paratroopers. I agreed to meet because I had to know. She chose a painfully chic Georgetown tea room with embroidered napkins. Lyra's story had painted Celeste as passively cruel, a follower, not a leader. Could she be the weak link? Could reason prevail with her away from the toxic influence of her mother and husband? Conversations. It was the perfect stage for a deception. She arrived late, sweeping in a cream silk dress that made her look like a fallen angel. She sat, ordered a pot of Earl Grey, and then turned her wide, supposedly innocent eyes on me. Praise, she said, sounding rehearsed. Mother and Preston are just terribly worried about you. A foolish, weak part of me, a part one thought I had buried long ago, wanted to believe her. It was the part of me that still yearned for a normal life, for holiday dinners that didn't feel like a ceasefire. Family doesn't try to destroy each other, Celeste, I said, my voice lower than I intended. She let out a theatrical sigh, the picture of weary patience. Would be so much easier for you if you would just cooperate. She was offering an olive branch, but I could see the thorns hidden beneath the leaves. It was a threat wrapped in concern. I remembered something I heard from the author Nee Brown in a podcast. You can't negotiate your worth with people who can't see it. Charming. To me it looked predatory. All you have to do is sign the papers, renounce the inheritance, and Mother will arrange a generous monthly allowance for you. Enough for you to live comfortably anywhere you want. You'll be welcomed back for the holidays, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. You'll be part of the family again. Pure arrogance. They thought my self-respect, my grandfather's legacy, and my father's stolen honor could be bought with a monthly check, like a subscription service to their approval. They wanted me to sell my soul for the privilege of eating dry turkey and enduring their condescending smiles once a year. Sale, Celeste, the smile vanished, replaced by the cold contempt I had always known. The mask was gone. You were always this way, she screamed, whispering venomously. Stupid, stubborn. Do you understand? You're not welcome. You never did. She leaned across the table, her eyes flaming with ancient fury. Grandfather kept you for charity, out of sympathy. You're not his tribute. She stopped, delivering her final words with devastating intensity. Your load weighed him down his whole life. My deepest, worst fear, hidden since childhood, was stated openly. Fear of being undesired and accepted was a mistake. World skewed. Air escaped my lungs. Then something changed. I felt total cold clarity instead of crushing pain. Her statements weren't surprising. They confirmed and released. Nothing was salvageable here. Nothing was left to expect. They cut the last thread connecting us by hand. Pushing my chair back, I stood. I glanced down at my cousin, a lady who shared my blood but not my heart, and felt nothing, just a huge empty gap. "Thank you for clarifying," I answered emotionlessly. I turned and left without looking back. Returned to my motel's sterile stillness. I heard Celeste's last word, burden, echoing in the empty space. The wound was deep and festering, confirming my greatest insecurities I had spent my life avoiding. I felt the anguish like a cold, familiar tide for a few hours. I felt they had attained their deepest nastiness and scorn. Was wrong. The knockout gut strike was still to come. Lyra's email appeared on my laptop. It was a bold, urgent message from Preston's lawyers. My heart pounded my ribs like a trapped bird. Clicking it open required a deep breath. A PDF legal document with a powerful DC law firm's letterhead was included. A cease and desist letter. My eyes skimmed the dense, assertive legalese paragraphs. It was awful as usual. First, corporate saber rattling to intimidate someone. I was officially barred from claiming the Corina estate. It blocked me from contacting Ethelgard Industries board members. It warned me from entering the mansion and threatened restraining orders and legal action. It was a formal warning that their wealth and power would crush me. It was expected. I was ready. But the world got quiet as I saw the third paragraph. This wasn't about me. Concerned my father. Major Colonel Elias Creed, a fictional deserter, was called in cold, detached legal jargon for maximum effect. A myth my grandfather allegedly made in his dementia, exclusively to cheat the Crow family heirs of their inheritance. Words obscured. I read them repeatedly. They wanted more than to obliterate future me. They wanted to carefully, legally, and publicly erase my father. They spit on the grave of a soldier I never mourned. They called a hero coward, man of honor fraud. They were trying to burn my only image of him to ash in their avarice. They intended to ruin my only remembrance of him. It felt like my blood froze, solid then rapidly boiled. The issue was no longer money. Houses, corporations, and portfolio stocks were no longer relevant. Honor was at stake. Honoring my grandfather, the 40-year general who served his country honorably. The glory of my father, a paratrooper in the 802nd Airborne, a brotherhood I now belonged to, and a daughter who would not allow them be soiled. They crossed every limit. Human morality. They carelessly spilled gasoline on the holiest ground and ignited a match. I stared at the computer, watching toxic words dance. The small room became suffocatingly quiet. Cheap air conditioner hum vanished away. Still hurting at Celeste's words. A fresh pure wrath scorched away loneliness and anguish. And then a strange, scary calm fell over me. My inner maelstrom subsided. These tears I believed might come never did. The need to scream into a pillow subsided. The gnawing self-doubt burned. Only a laser-focused objective remained. Mission. The sound scraped harshly in the quiet room as I moved my chair back. Standing up, I looked out the window at Alexandria's indifferent, sparkling lights. I remembered a commitment I made years before, with my right hand lifted and my heart full of purpose. The oath of office for all U.S. military commissioned officers. I applaud. Corina swears to defend the U.S. Constitution against all foes, foreign and domestic. Domestic. Vivian and Preston were no outsiders. They were internal enemies. Their deception tore our family apart from the inside. They had betrayed trust, family, and now a slain soldier's honor. My responsibility was no longer optional. It was duty. Silence was gone. Strategy. Complicity. I grabbed my phone. I located Lyra's number in recent calls with a steady thumb. On the second ring, she replied alertly. "Lyra," I said. My voice sounded emotionless and flat. I gave orders in the field with this voice when life and death were at stake. I waited, letting the sentence hang as a declaration of war. "We're aggressive." Silence on the other end. I could practically hear her acute legal mind working. Her response was clear and firm. "Yes, Major." She spoke without hesitation or doubt, simply loyalty. "Your orders?" The fight started. Have you ever felt so pressed that you had to fight back with everything you had? I was there. There was no going back. Room changed at motel. The spare bed, documents were stored there. Small desk was command center. Laptop lights up 24/7. Our mission board was a spiderweb of sticky notes and printouts joined by red marker on the thin wall above it. It was no longer a hideout. It was a war room and tactical operations center. My chief analyst was Lyra, who knew Ethelgard's complicated finances. I led the mission strategically. Together we, a two-woman army, launched a full-scale offensive. I instinctively used the Udall loop: observe, orient, decide, act, a decision-making cycle I learned early in training. We saw adversary behavior. Now was the moment to assess the new battlefield and prepare to act. Our initial mission was financial reconnaissance. Lyra suggested following the money, her eyes bright with insight. It's always honest, she advised me, navigating Preston's digital maze, her fingers speeding over the keyboard. She instantly identified the Meridian Trust as a common name in dozens of transactions. It appeared to be a clean nonprofit serving war veterans and their families. It had heroic rhetoric and cheerful army photographs on its website. The honorary advisory group included Washington's elite, senators, lobbyists, and society dons, all powerful Vivian pals. It was the ideal shield of patriotism and friendliness. Lyra snarled, "They're laundering money with veterans. Goes beyond fraud. A defilement. So we're not simply exposing them," I murmured, my rage a cold, hard stone in my gut. Taking it down. With cold coffee and takeout Chinese food and pizza scattered about the room, we worked 24/7. The days and nights blended into one prolonged effort. Lyra accessed Ethelgard's backup servers using her old credentials, retrieving files Preston assumed were gone. The liaison to my new pals was me. I asked Sergeant Kowalski something simple. Major Colonel Elias Creed's proper military records were needed yesterday. The information poured in. Constant digital firepower. Lyra cried triumphantly after recovering erased emails. They were key. They showed Preston authorized wire transfers from Ethelgard to the Meridian Trust, shifting my inheritance of $11 million. From there, the money trail led to Preston Vale through a complicated web of Delaware shell businesses. He planned more than to challenge the will. Already stole the money. Sergeant Kowalski emailed simultaneously. A was attached, scanned government PDF. The official DD Form 1300 reported Major Colonel Elias's Creed casualties. I examined the cartons. Name, rank, service number, box 10, death cause. Clear, formal, indisputable, killed in combat. The after-action report was highly redacted, but the summary was evident. He died saving his fellow soldiers, notably a young general called Alden Drake. I printed documents, machine-worn paper. My proof. This was his honor restored. They sought to hide this truth. Celeste's thoughtless vanity provided the smoking gun, not Preston's careful plotting. Lyra whistled softly while watching her screen. "Evelyn, you must see this." She compared Shell's bank statements to social media. There it was. Celeste boasted, got a $50,000 Cartier necklace from a Rodeo Drive boutique, with a company American Express card. That the corporate card wasn't from Ethelgard bothered her. Delaware Acquisitions LLC, one of Preston's main money laundering shell firms, was funded directly by Meridian Trust. Her signature was on the digital receipt. Lyra said, "We've got him," her eyes gleaming. "All are linked by this. Not just fraud. As conspiracy. Money laundering. Wire fraud. Evelyn. RICO case. The Corrupt Racketeer Influenced Organizations Act. It was the legal equivalent of a nuclear bomb that targeted entire criminal operations. They weren't just wrong. They gave us the means to annihilate them. They may have sensed the net tightening, because Sanaa made her fateful play then. Her lawsuit against me was filed. Character defamation was charged. I smiled slowly and coldly as I read Lyra's legal notice. Fine. She picked the battlefield and I was ready to fight. The Alexandria Federal Courthouse was packed. The air was oppressive with expectancy, expensive perfume and tense energy. Washington, D.C. media vultures, pale, apprehensive Ethelgard board members, and a silent, formidable presence filled the pews. Sergeant filled one complete row. Brothers Kowalski and my grandfather were paratroopers. They sat silently in their windbreakers, honor guards in a den of robbers. They weren't intimidating. Witnesses were present. Sanaa and Preston sat arrogantly at the defendant's table. They confidently whispered to their expensive, slick lawyer. They believed this was their turf and rules. They thought they'd smash me. Their lawyer, Marcus Vale, no relation, cruelly attacked my character in his opening remarks. I was portrayed as a disgruntled, unstable soldier and a combat-traumatized woman. He exploited my service record to accuse me of delusions and lying for money. He was trying to portray me as a PTSD veteran extorting her mourning self. Family. I noticed the ancient troops in the back tense in quiet wrath at this nasty tactic. I sat near Lyra at our table with my hands in my lap. I heard every toxic word and premeditated lie. I let him tell his story. I let him deepen their grave. After finishing, the judge looked at me. "You can testify, Major Drake." I stood without walking to the stand. So I went to the center of the courtroom and stood before the judge's bench. I was in my flawless Army duty uniform, deep blue jacket and polished medals. Not a witness. Not a victim. I was a report-delivering officer. Before starting, I saw the American flag beside the judge. For honesty, honor, nation, I thought. "Your Honor," I said, my voice clear and commanding. "Defamation is not involved. A crime is under investigation." That prompted Lyra. On big screens, slide after slide appeared behind me. Lyra's mouse clicked softly, breaking the courtroom's quiet. Start with Sanaa and Preston's fake emails. The world saw their disrespect for the tiny Army girl. People in the gallery gasped. Next, a thorough flowchart, a web of deceit, mapped the unlawful transfer of $11 million from Ethelgard Industries to the sham Veterans Charity, Meridian Trust, and Delaware Vale-controlled shell corporations. An angry murmuring arose among the Ethelgard board members. The high-resolution image of Celeste S. exquisite, damning signature on the $50,000 Rodeo Drive Cartier receipt, paid for by a business card linked to one of the shell firms, concluded the financial case. I saw Preston's smugness turn sour. A fine sweat beaded on his forehead. Sitting frozen, Vivian, she grabbed the table edge with white knuckles and a look of astonishment. They felt invincible. Their criminal conspiracy was now projected 10 feet high in a federal courtroom. The receipt image lingered on the screen for a long, agonizing minute. As widespread as these financial crimes are, they are just symptoms, Your Honor, I said quietly. A sign of a deeper moral decay in this family. For decades. I returned to my table and took one file. Supported it. I said, "This is Major Colonel Elias Creed's official U.S. Army casualty report." I read his Evelyn aloud. I read the after-action report narrative on how he risked enemy fire to rescue a wounded officer. Officer General Alden Drake. The sealed envelope contained my grandfather's personal journal. Reading made my voice shake for the first time. Writing a year after my father's death about his secret suffering. Vivian insists on continuing the story. She claims his name and remembrance threaten our family's reputation. She made me bury my hero, my friend, again. I must lie to my granddaughter. May God forgive me. I closed the diary and stared at Sanaa. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear my heart racing. "Your Honor, she stole more than money," I said, my voice echoing with uncontrollable rage. "She stole a hero's legacy. She tried to obliterate the memories of a soldier who died for my grandfather and nation. Way too much." Vivian leapt to her feet as the powerful matriarch's carefully prepared veneer broke. Drained of all reason and cornered like a rodent. Her eyes were bloodshot and her face twisted with rage. She pointed a trembling manicured finger at me. "You," she lost control. "You and your father should never have been part of this family. I did everything to make sure he never came back. He was never meant to come back." The naked confession hung in the charged air. Everyone gasped in court. The media raged. Cameras flashed. Preston appeared stone-like. Judge's gavel fell. A loud crack that shook the room's foundations. 1, twice, 3. Order. Court order. No order remained. All was over. Days after the courtroom explosion felt like earthquake aftershocks. My poison fault line world was irreparably broken. From the courthouse, Vivian was arrested. Cable news repeated her insane confession. Some days later, federal authorities arrested Preston at his shiny Tyson's office tower. A silent, humiliating end to his greedy rule. News outlets like Fox News and The Washington Post ran unrelenting headlines. Fall of Crow Drake. DC socialite charged with fraud. Possible murder plot. To prevent a total collapse, A court-appointed receiver and Lyra Vance were appointed to stabilize Ethelgard Industries. My motel room protected me while I witnessed it all. Television, a gateway to a world I no longer live in, felt included. There was no joy or fist pump, just emptiness. Survival training says to find shelter and analyze damage after escaping imminent danger. I was there. Battle over. The enemy lost. However, my family's destruction scattered the battlefield. I stood alone among the rubble. A week later, Celeste picked the public court as her final battleground. Pinion. She held a news conference on the manicured front lawn of the Corina home, which I owned but didn't want to visit. She appeared before a sea of microphones in a dark gray outfit with beautifully tousled hair and big, red eyes. The performance of her life. She cried. She described herself as a sheltered, loving wife and daughter blinded by her husband's avarice and her mother's dominance. She denied knowing about the illegal activities, portraying herself as their ultimate victim and pawn. In her unbearable pain, she pleaded for pardon and seclusion. No anger came from watching her on screen. I wasn't disgusted. I felt exhausted pity. Even with the charade revealed, her first inclination was to locate a new mask. She had no truth to face, therefore she never would. She was a hollow reflection of what she thought others wanted to see. That made her my cousin no longer. She was a TV stranger, a ghost from my past. I switched channels. 2 days later, the letter arrived. It arrived by courier from Mr. Finch's law office. A simple manila envelope. There was no return address, just my name, Major Evelyn Corina, scrawled in a strong, manly hand on the front. Soldier's handwriting. Slow, hefty drumbeats from my heart hit my ribcage. Sitting on the motel bed, my fingers quivering as I carefully opened the seal. Only one sheet of stationery was inside. Short Evelyn in the letter. They said you'd be safer without me. I was a ghost that would harm you, they said. Long time I believed them. Every day I regret that error. I never ceased monitoring you remotely. Stop becoming a ghost. It's time to meet your dad. Colonel Elias Creed. My dad JC, my father lived. Words swam before me. Stoicism, my shield, armor and identity broke. The grief I'd avoided. I hadn't cried for a lifetime of pain. The crushing weight I carried for years. Everything flew free. I dropped the letter, covered my face with my hands, and cried for the first time since childhood. He requested a meeting. Vietnam Veterans Memorial. No location on earth fit better. It was a fresh, beautiful morning on the National Mall with a brutally bright blue sky. He faced the black granite wall with his back to me as I arrived. His palm carefully traced the infinite river of names on the polished surface. A hushed ghost communion I could only imagine. He was older than the photo man. Of course, his dark hair was now silver, then not, yet his posture was clear. Soldier's ramrod straight back. He turned, sensing my presence, and I saw his face. The photo showed warm, crinkling eyes. Eyes carrying 30 years of secrets and regrets. Praise, he murmured, his voice full with lifelong emotion. In my head, I practiced 100 different phrases. 100 inquiries, accusations, and suffering. They all stood before him then, dissolved. Words failed. Only a 29-year gap needed to be closed. I stepped unsteadily forward and hugged him. The back of my head was cradled by his strong grip. In that embrace, the lies, loneliness, and years of feeling burdened finally vanished. I wasn't orphan. I wasn't wrong. I was home. Found my relatives. Some months later, I appeared on a National Press Club podium, Washington, D.C., with journalists, lawmakers, and my new reality in the front row. My father sat next to Lyra, while Sergeant Kowalski and my grandfather's paratrooper brothers, proud, grizzled faces filled the row. I cleared my throat and started gazing at the crowd. My grandfather, General Dean Corina, left me a great inheritance, remarked I. But I've realized that his true heritage and that of my unknown father, Major Colonel Elias Creed, is not a balance sheet item. Therefore, Ethelgard Industries and its assets will be liquidated. It will be replaced by a new company. Pause to allow my next words sink in. I am pleased to establish the Creed Cora Foundation for Truth and Transition. Murmurs filled the room. Corporate building will not be my family's legacy. 2 soldiers' legacy will be honored. Foundation will give pro gratis legal assistance for veterans and their families. Family stories suppressed, voices silenced, honor challenged. We shall never forget the truth. I regarded my father. Pride lit his gaze. I remembered my grandfather's will's final line, which I finally understood. Your bravery never disappoints me. Regardless of his location, I hoped he was not disappointed. Later that night, after the reporters left, my father and I saw the Capitol's lights from a wide window. The general would admire you, he whispered Evelyn. A genuine smile crossed my face. I suppose we'd make him proud. We were met by Sergeant Kowalski and other paratroopers across the room. The day's assistance mission finished. My father and I approached them, and they sprung to attention despite their age. They all raised their hands, snappy formal salute. I halted, stood up, and saluted. My moves are exact. Now I wasn't saluting as a lone officer fighting a lonely war. As a daughter who discovered her father and a soldier who had fulfilled her most precious duty to safeguard the truth and honor heroes, I saluted. I eventually saw daybreak. My morning came, but I know my narrative is just one among many. I fought for family honor, to discover myself. Many of you listening have fought quiet fights against being unseen or unheard by those who should have loved you most. Please share your tale in the comments if you're comfortable. Voice matters and you're not alone. Subscribe to our channel for more journey-related stories. Thanks for listening.